The one thing that has distinguished me as a lawyer, and that has been working on my skills as a trial lawyer. I have spent a lifetime trying to master these skills. I have taught it for over 40 plus years. I've been a lawyer for over 45 years. The one characteristic I would think that I'm good at is studying, preparation, trying to master the skills. When I teach law students, I call it ROI, return on investment. There's no greater return on investment than investing in yourself, in your skills of becoming better, becoming more persuasive, being a better cross-examiner. To me, that's been the hallmark of my career. I have spent a lifetime teaching at the law school and teaching in seminars around the country. I believe that those lawyers who have obtained the skills, who have a lifetime of work in the courtroom, have an obligation to teach others. And I think it was Einstein who said, nobody knows anything well until they can simply explain it to somebody else. And I think that's sort of the important part of knowing these skills is being able to impart them simply and understandably and competently to others, whether law students or other lawyers. And I think it's the obligation of those of us who have spent a lifetime doing this. I really like this question because I spent a lot of time redesigning law school. Because I think the way the law school works these days is set on a paradigm that's 100 years old. I wanted to create a curriculum to teach trial lawyers, all through mock trials, through seminars, not through academic pursuits, but through practical learning the skills of a trial lawyer. So for example, I wanted to teach jury selection by actually having panels of people brought in from the outside and having law students spend all day questioning them, one after another, and then having experienced lawyers as coaches. And the reason I mention jury selection particularly, because the number one thing that lawyers have to master is the ability to communicate. And the great thing about jury selection is you have to communicate to the average person sitting in that jury box. You have to build a relationship with them. You have to connect with them. It's the basic element of charisma, being able to talk to people at any station in life. And one of the things I wanted to do in designing this program was have a party. And I would send the students into this party with the obligation they had to talk to every person and find out something about them that they could tell me at the end of the evening. And I would grade them based upon how much they could find out about a person, because that is a great skill, I think, of the trial lawyers. But of course, no one will ever do that. No one will ever give me the opportunity to create this. The reason when I started as a lawyer, I was a public defender for 5 years. And the reason for this is when I was just ending junior high school, entering high school, my stepfather was British, and we upped and moved from Connecticut to Kingston, Jamaica. And I went to an English prep school, one of these old line English prep schools that were run by these brutal Brits who were ex-army and what have you. And I had this guy for math, and he was black, and he hated me either because I was an American or because I was white. I never quite figured which one it was. And he loved to torture me. And he made me go up to the blackboard several times a week to do arithmetic in English pounds, pence, sterling, halfpennies, everything you can think of which I hadn't the slightest idea, just so he could embarrass me. And I learned to hate petty authority. You know, I came as a typical middle-class American kid, and I was thrown into this different society and I learned about bias and prejudice and petty authority and how they can make your life miserable. And I've dedicated my life to fighting against that in some way. And that's why I became a public defender, because I just hated what they did to people who lived on the street and the homeless and the people who had no break at all. And I loved representing them and fighting against the government. Well, I think charisma, communication, being able to talk to people, to anyone, to be able to go out on the street and talk to somebody who's homeless, to the cop on the beat, to the housewife, to the CEO, to the billionaires of the world, to speak to each of them as equals and to be able to communicate. And don't be arrogant, be as humble as the most humble person, yet not to be overly intimidated by the wealthy and the wildly intelligent. When I was in college, I read the book My Life in Court by Louis Nizer. In fact, I wrote a book and I put in the book that the model I was using was Louis Nizer's book. I don't know why, when I read that and read about his cases and how much he worked and the intricacies of it and the ideas that he obtained and the defenses he put up and the design of the whole thing, I was just fascinated by it. And I thought that is probably the single most important event in determining to become a lawyer.